The rain poured hard on the old mining moon, turning dry dust into thick, sticky mud. Lightning cracked across the dark sky. Yalin, a human salvage pilot, sat inside his old rusted skimmer, scanning the silent valley. Suddenly, a small beep lit up his console. Distress signal detected. His eyes narrowed. No one had lived here for years. This part of the moon was dead abandoned after the mines ran dry. Whoever sent that signal wasn't supposed to be here. He tapped the coordinates into his ship's system and started the engines. The skimmer's lights cut through the fog as he followed the signal toward the hills. 20 minutes later, saw it. A small silver pod was half buried in the mud, smoke rising from its broken side. Glowing lines, pulsing faintly along its frame. Yalin approached carefully, blaster in hand. He called out, "Anyone inside? Do you need help?" No answer. He climbed up and touched the emergency panel. It sparked. The hatch hissed open slowly with a low hum. Inside, he saw her. A small girl, maybe 7 or 8 years old, sat on the floor. She had silver skin, long, white hair and glowing violet eyes. She was barefoot, wearing a torn cloak that looked far too thin for the cold air outside. She didn't cry. She didn't speak. She just stared at him silent, still like a statue. Yalin lowered his blaster. "Stay there," he said gently. "You okay?" No reply. Only that stare. He stepped inside slowly. The pod smelled of smoke and metal. He checked her for injuries. No wounds, no burns. But her hands were shaking. She looked scared, or maybe lost. He reached out. "Come on, let's get you out of here." She didn't move, but when he gently picked her up, she didn't resist either. She was light, too light, like she hadn't eaten in days. She buried her face against his shoulder as he carried her to his skimmer. Back at his shelter, small dome built from salvage parts, Yolan wrapped her in a blanket and gave her water. She sipped slowly, eyes still wide and unblinking. He offered food. She sniffed it, but didn't eat. He crouched in front of her. "Do you have a name? Where's your family?" Still nothing. Only silence. "All right," he sighed, rubbing the back of his neck. "I'll call you Leary. You okay with that?" She blinked once. A small nod was the first sign she understood. As night came, Yalin reported the crash to the nearest port authority. The answer came back short. No recent ship logs. Unknown craft. No pickup scheduled. He frowned. That didn't make sense. Alien or not, someone should be looking for her. Hours passed. Leary didn't sleep. She just sat near the corner, hugging her knees, eyes always following him. At one point, Yalin left the room to check the power cells. When he returned, he saw her standing in front of the control panel. Her tiny fingers hovered above the glowing buttons she had never seen before. But she knew exactly which ones to press. The panel flickered. A soft hum filled the room. Jalen stepped forward. "Hey, that's not a toy." Before he could finish, she pressed a final key. A short pulse shot into the era signal. It vanished into space. Jalen froze. "What did you just send?" She turned to look at him. This time her lips moved slightly, but no sound came out. That night he couldn't sleep. Who was she? Didn't she speak? And what kind of signal had she sent? She didn't act like a normal kid, and that ship looked like something ancient, a royal. Jalen sat by the fire, glancing over at her. She had curled up in the blanket now, watching the flames, her eyes glowing softly in the dark. He whispered to himself, "What did I bring home?" Outside, the storm began to fade. But above the clouds, something far worse had already started. Moving, 2 massive ships, silent and deadly, shifted course toward the small moon. On their screens was a single flickering signal, a royal distress call. From a lost princess, *, the girl didn't sleep. She hadn't closed her eyes once since Yalin brought her back to the shelter. He noticed it as he poured himself a cup of lukewarm synth coffee the next morning. She just sat there, wrapped in the blanket, her glowing violet eyes quietly watching. Him blinking only when she had to. Yalin tried not to stare back, but it was hard not to. She looked so small, so fragile. Yet something about her presence felt heavy, like she carried a weight far bigger than her size. He set the cup down and walked over to her. "You hungry today?" he asked gently, holding out a heat bar. She tilted her head but didn't reach for it. He sighed, looked leery. "I know you don't trust me yet, I get it, but you gotta eat something." Still nothing, it's just that strange, silent gaze. Then she did something unexpected. She reached out and touched his hand just for a second. Her fingers were warm, softer than he expected. But the moment her skin met his, a strange pulse ran up his arm, a flicker. Like static, but deeper. Images shot through his mind in a flash. A burning throne room, screaming voices. A tall alien. Woman with the same silver skin and glowing eyes, falling to the ground as soldiers in black armor stormed the gates. And then, that woman's hand, reaching out toward someone small, someone hiding behind a curtain. He gasped and pulled. Back. The vision vanished. The warmth disappeared. Leary was still staring at him, but now she looked sad. "What was that?" he whispered. She didn't answer. She didn't need to. Jolin stood there in stunned silence, heart pounding. He knew now. Whatever she was, wherever she came from, this girl wasn't ordinary. Later that day, he tried again to reach someone on the comms. He boosted the signal, contacted outer patrols, even sent a request to the nearest trade ring. But still no one responded about the crash. No one claimed a missing child. It was like she didn't exist. Outside the shelter, the storm had passed. The sky was clearer now, 2 suns rising on the rocky horizon. Yalin figured it would be a good time to show her around the perimeter, maybe help her feel safer. So he took her hand, careful not to touch skin again, and led her out. She followed, quietly looking around with wide, curious eyes. The valley was calm. Old mining rails stretched across cracked hills. Machinery lay broken and rusting. Yalin showed her the solar panels, the water collector, and the small garden of protein-rich plants he'd grown in crates. She didn't say anything, but she listened. When they returned, she walked past him and stood in front of the dome's main power station. Then, without a word, she reached out and placed her palm on the broken generator coil. It had been dead for 2 weeks. He hadn't found replacement parts. The coil lit up, bright blue. It's fully restored. Jalen's jaw dropped. No way. She turned and walked away as if nothing happened. That night, as he lay in his bunk, he couldn't sleep. He thought about what she showed him, about that strange vision, about the royal-looking woman who had fallen in the flames. That memory, it didn't feel like a dream. It felt like something real. Something buried inside Leary. He checked the logs again, scanned her pod's ID one more time, and there, hidden in corrupted files, he found a single line of alien text translated by his system's old language program. Level 1 Royal Alert activated, blood air in transit. He sat back in his chair, feeling cold. She wasn't just a child. She was someone's heir. Maybe a queen's daughter. Be something more. But why hadn't anyone come for her? He looked over at her, asleep now, finally curled in a blanket near the fire. Silver hair glowing softly under the warm light. She looked peaceful, but far above them. In the cold, dark space above the mining moon, something had changed. From beyond the star lanes, 2 long, dark ships entered the system, sleek, sharp, and full of power. They bore a symbol carved in silver, a star inside a crown surrounded by chains. Inside the lead ship, a voice growled, "We've locked onto the signal. Prepare the recovery teams. The princess will be retrieved." Another voice asked, "What? If she resists?" Silence. Then the reply came cold and sharp. "Then burn the human moon. Leave nothing." Back in the shelter, the girl stirred in her sleep. Her eyes opened for a moment, and a single tear rolled down her cheek. She whispered one word. Mother Yolan didn't hear it, but he would soon. And when he did, it would already be too late. Asterisk the next morning, Yolan was up early. Hadn't slept well. His mind kept replaying that strange warning from the pod's damaged log. Blood, air, in transit. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw that burning palace, that woman falling, that silver crown. He looked over at Leary, still resting by the fire. She looked peaceful now, her breathing soft and steady. But she wasn't just a child, that much. It was clear he had questions, so many questions. And if the alert she triggered actually meant what he feared, then someone out there, someone powerful, was already coming. And they wouldn't ask questions. They would just take. A sharp beeping noise broke the silence. Yalan spun toward the console. It wasn't the weather alarm. It wasn't a storm. Unidentified ship detected. He rushed to the terminal. A tiny red dot blinked on the scanner. A ship had entered orbit. No registry. No call sign. No message, just watching. Then, another. Alert flashed. Second ship detected. No ID. His gut twisted. Asterisk. Leary, he said, turning toward her. Wake up. She opened her eyes instantly, already alert. Like she'd been waiting for something. We have visitors, he said. She didn't look surprised. In fact, her face looked almost afraid. He handed her a small pack. We're going out the back, just in case. They didn't make it far. As Yolan opened the rear hatch, two tall figures stepped into view. They were dressed in black armor, sleek and full body, their helmets sharp and smooth with no visible face. One of them raised a hand. Human came. A voice through a speaker, cold and emotionless. Step aside. That girl belongs to us. Yalan didn't move. His hand hovered near his blaster, but he didn't draw. She's just a kid, he said. She is royal property, the figure replied. Surrender her now. Behind him, Leary gripped his sleeve. Her hand trembled. Eyes shimmered with light. She's not going anywhere, Yalan said. Without warning, the second armored figure fired. A blue blast slammed into the ground, near Jalen's feet, sending him flying backwards. The girl screamed. For a moment, the entire valley seemed to shake. Then everything stopped. Leary stood in front of him now, her hands raised, eyes glowing like two stars. The two attackers stepped forward, weapons aimed. Leary opened her mouth and let out a soundless cry. It was more energy than voice, a wave of invisible force. The air cracked. Both armored figures were thrown off their feet, slammed hard against the rocks. Their weapons shattered like glass. Their bodies hit the ground and didn't move. Jlen stared in disbelief. She looked down at her hands like she didn't understand what she had done. Then she turned to him. I didn't mean to, she said softly. It was the first time he had heard her speak. Her voice was gentle, young, but behind it there was something ancient, something heavy with loss. Yalan got up slowly, grabbing his pack. He looked around. More will come. She nodded once. He activated the hidden escape tunnel under the dome, shaft that led to the old mining network below the hills. It was narrow and dark, but it would hide them for now. As they moved through the tunnels, Leary spoke again. They weren't here to protect me, she said. They served the ones who took everything. Yalan looked back at her. Who took? What? My family? My home? My people? She paused. I wasn't supposed to survive. Yalan stopped walking. The tunnel was quiet, except for the hum of old lights. You're not just a princess, are you? Leary didn't answer. They kept walking until they reached an old power station. He activated the shielded chamber inside and sealed the door behind them. Then he turned to her. I need the truth, Leary. She looked down, then pulled something. From the folds of her cloak, a thin silver disc, glowing with strange patterns. She held it out to him. When I escaped, I took this. He didn't touch it. What is it? The key to the throne. Her voice trembled. If they get it, they can take control of the royal fleet. All of it. Every planet. Every system. My people would be forced to kneel or die. Yalan sat down, stunned. He had picked up a silent girl from a crash site, but he hadn't saved a child. He had saved an empire. I looked at him, her eyes suddenly serious. I'll burn this moon. You know that, right? Yalan nodded slowly. Then we can't stay here. We? She asked. He looked at her. You're not facing them alone. I've lost people too. I'm not letting them take you. A faint smile touched her lips, the first he'd ever seen, far above. In orbit, the two downed soldiers' signal finally stopped transmitting. The dark ships moved closer, and in the shadows of the mining moon, a human and a runaway heir prepared for war. Hours passed inside the old mining tunnel, and the world above felt colder with each moment. Yalin sat across from Leary inside the shielded chamber, his eyes locked on the glowing silver disc in her hand. It pulsed faintly, not just with light, but with something more. Alive, like it was listening, watching. "This disc," he said softly, "is a weapon." "No," Leary answered. "It's power." She held it up, and the markings along. Its edge shifted, not randomly, but in smooth patterns like breathing. "It connects to everything my family built. Ships, worlds, defense rings, communication lines, all of it." Yalin leaned back, trying to take it in. "So, you're not just a princess," he said. "You're a key." She nodded. The last one, he looked at her again. Really looked. She didn't seem like a child anymore. Her posture had changed. Her voice was steadier now. He didn't know if she was growing, adapting, or just remembering who she was. "I thought I was alone when the palace fell," she said. "I ran, my mother. She told me to take the disc and escape. She stayed behind." Leary closed her eyes, and for a moment her voice cracked. "They didn't want to rule. They wanted to erase us. They called us impure. Said our line was too kind, too weak. Mercy was seen as a flaw." Yolan remained silent. He didn't interrupt. "My people weren't warriors," she went on. "We ruled through peace, through shared knowledge. It made us vulnerable. And when the coup began, the warlords turned our peace systems into tools of control." She looked at the disc again. "This is the only piece they didn't get." Yolan exhaled slowly. "And now they followed it here. They'll never." "Stop," she said. "Not until it's in their hands." Yalin stood up, rubbing his face. His body was tired, but his mind was racing. He checked the scanner he'd pulled from his gear bag. The surface was still swarming. At least one carrier ship had landed, and small scout drones were sweeping the area. They hadn't found the tunnel system yet, but it was only a matter of time. "We can't stay here," he said. "They'll crack this old chamber eventually. Where can we go?" He stared at the map. Or something, maybe. 10 years ago, during a deep salvage job, Yolan had stumbled on a sealed war lab, a leftover from the early human conflicts. He hadn't entered it. It was locked behind layers of encryption, and he'd written it off as a lost cause. But if there was ever a time to try again, this was it. "We go underground," he said, "real deep. I know a place that hasn't been touched in decades. If anything in this system can hide you, it's there." Leary looked up at him. "Hey, are you helping me?" It stopped him for a second. He didn't have an easy answer. Maybe it was because she reminded him of his daughter, the one he'd lost during the Mars riots. Maybe it was because no one had helped him when he needed it. Maybe he was just tired of running from everything. "You don't leave someone behind," he finally said, "and when the whole galaxy is trying to erase them." Eyes softened. He started packing. They moved quickly. The tunnels connected to the old drilling shafts, and from there down into the planet's deeper crust. The air got colder. The lights grew dimmer, but Leary kept pace, never complaining. Her presence, though small, felt stronger by the hour. As they climbed down a broken lift shaft, Yolan noticed the rock walls around them were humming faintly, not from movement but from something deeper, like ancient text stirring beneath. The stone, the old war lab, was real, and it was waking up. When they finally reached the sealed gates, Yalin placed his hand on the scanner, expecting nothing, but the system lit up. Biometric match detected. Human authorization level, salvager prime. He blinked. That wasn't supposed to work. The doors hissed open. Inside, the chamber was vast, a hangar carved into stone. Walls lined with machines from a forgotten era, human tech, heavy armor, stealth rigs, drones, and at the center, under layers of dust, sat a single war mech, tall, worn, and powerful. Liar stepped forward. "It's beautiful," she whispered. Jalen placed a hand on its side. It still might work. She looked at him again, not with fear, but with something new. Trust. I'm not just running. Any more, she said. If I face them, I'll need more than the disc. Yalan nodded. Then let's make them regret ever coming here. In the dark skies above, the war fleet shifted. The princess was no longer in hiding, and Earth's last soldier had chosen his side. Asterisk the air inside. The war lab was still and heavy. Decades had passed since a human voice echoed through its cold corridors. Machines had slept for years, silent, forgotten, buried beneath layers of stone and dust. But now, they stirred. Jalen wiped sweat from his brow as he moved between control panels and consoles. Most of the systems were dead, corrupted by time, but he found backups still responding to his commands. Systems designed during humanity's final expansion wars. He wasn't a soldier, but he was a salvager. Salvagers always knew how. 2 wake-old ghosts. Across the chamber, Leary sat in silence, legs crossed beneath her, eyes closed. The silver disc hovered between her hands, spinning slowly in the air. She wasn't holding it. It moved on its own, guided by some unseen energy. Yalan glanced at her and paused.
Ow.
The glow around her body was different now. Sharper. Her skin shimmered faintly, like starlight rippling over water. She looked older than she had just days ago, not physically, but in presence. Her voice was calm, her movements precise. The fear was still there, but it no longer ruled her. Leary, he said, approaching, I've got power rerouted to the hangar. The mech's fusion core is live, but it won't move unless we clear the command chain. That thing's still locked to a combat pilot from 70 years ago. She opened her eyes slowly, then let me try. He raised an eyebrow. You know how to. I can connect to systems, she said softly. My ancestors made for. My ancestors controlled fleets with their minds. One voice could move thousands.
Else.
Aside, she walked to the mech, a towering black machine with human-like structure. Armored shoulders, a V-shaped chest plate, and 2 reactor cores glowing faintly at the back. Its eyes were dark. Its hands were curled into fists. Leary placed her hand. On its chest, the mech's eyes flared to life. The chamber shook. JLN took a step back, stunned. The old war machine rose, gears grinding, metal hissing. It flexed its arms like waking from a long sleep. Its deep voice rumbled from the speaker inside its chest. Command code accepted. Royal link verified. Awaiting orders.
Ow.
Leary's voice was steady. You serve under human protection now. Engage defensive protocols. Prepare for surface extraction. Affirmative. Let out a long breath. Well, I guess that solves that. Outside the lab, the enemy was still searching. Patrol ships passed overhead every few hours. Drones crawled the hills, but they hadn't found the tunnel entrance yet. Inside, Yalan prepared for war. He spent the night studying the mech system, uploading ancient maps, building a power network with portable solar lines, programming a remote decoy to distract any tracking signals. Leary helped where she could, but most of her time was spent in front of the mech, eyes locked with the disc, sharing something silent and deep. You don't have to fight, he told her once. I do, she replied, 'cause running won't. Stop them. And if I don't face them now, others will pay. There was no fear in her voice, only sadness. He didn't argue again. On the 3rd day, the ground above them shook. Explosions echoed from the surface. The enemy had found the dome, and they were tearing it apart. They'll start scanning deeper soon, Yalan said. We're out of time. Leary stood beside the mech now. She wore a lightweight armor suit they found in storage, shaped to fit, lined with energy reactive threads. Her silver hair was tied back. The glow in her eyes never faded now. She didn't look like a child. Anymore, she looked like something more, something the galaxy wasn't ready for. Yalan stood beside her in his salvager rig, reinforced with armor plates and wired for combat interface. He'd never worn gear like this before. But his hands didn't shake. He wasn't just protecting cargo anymore. It was protecting something worth dying for. They climbed into the mech, her in the core control seat, him in the rear interface. The machine roared as it powered up. Above, the enemy ships shifted. A signal went out. She's alive, gauging in pursuit. As the war mech burst through the tunnel entrance, the sky lit with weapons fire. Alien crafts circled like vultures. But Leary's voice echoed through the command systems, and the mech responded with brutal elegance. Laser turrets extended. Plasma. Cannons locked on targets. Shields pulsed. JLEN took control of movement. She handled the rest. Together, they danced through fire. One ship fell, then another. But the sky was full. Too many, Ellen said through gritted teeth. Then we give them something to fear, Leary replied. She reached into her chest piece and pulled the disc free. She held it high and spoke 3 words in. A language Yalon didn't understand, the disc flashed across the valley. Old defense towers, long buried, activated. From beneath the ground, Earth-made artillery crawled up and aimed at the sky. Forgotten weapons, old wars, and one girl. Born of stars. All of it. Awakened missiles launched, alien ships broke formation, the fleet began to retreat not because they were beaten, because they finally understood something they had refused to. Believe the lost heir was not lost. She was reborn and she had chosen a human to stand at her side. Asterisk, the battlefield was quiet now. Ash drifted across the scorched valley like gray snow. The skies, once filled with screaming engines and glowing missiles, were silent. The war mech stood in the center of it all, its armor scratched and blackened by fire, steam still rising from its shoulders. Leary stepped down from the cockpit slowly, boots pressing into the cracked earth. Jalen followed behind her, limping. Slightly. His side was bruised from the last impact. They'd taken a near-direct hit. From one of the plasma drones. He didn't care, because they were still standing, and the enemy had run, not retreated, not reorganized. They had fled. But that didn't bring peace. Not yet. Yalon looked at the wreckage of the alien ships. Their dark metal was still pulsing with dim red light. He stepped closer to one of the broken hulls and pried open a side panel. Inside, instead of a control console, he found chains, shackles, used not to fly the ship, but to bind the ones who did. He cursed under his breath. They weren't soldiers, he muttered. They were slaves. Leary stood beside him now. Her expression was cold, distant. That's how they control entire systems, she said. They don't need armies when they use people's own families against them. You refuse to fight. They take your children. Yalon looked at her quietly. How long were you chained? He asked. She didn't answer. But her silence said enough. They returned to the war lab before nightfall. Most of the systems were still holding. The auto-repair drones were patching the mech's left arm. Yalon sat down near the fire chamber, drinking a pouch of water, eyes heavy with exhaustion. Leary sat across from him. Neither of them spoke for a while. Finally, Yalon broke the silence. You said your people ruled through peace, he said. Why didn't they fight back when the traitors rose? They believed mercy was stronger than fear, she said. They believed in reason, in balance. My mother used to say, a throne built on kindness can never fall. She looked away. She was wrong. Yalon didn't argue. He didn't know enough about royalty or empires. But he knew about survival, about what happened when people who wanted peace met people who only wanted power. Your mother might have been wrong about the throne, he said softly. But she was right about you. It made her pause. He continued, you have power, Leary. Not just in that disc or in your blood. In you, you could have run again after that battle, but you didn't. You stood. She didn't speak. But her eyes glowed a little brighter. Then came the signal. A faint ping on the long-range scanner, a message encrypted. Human frequency. Yalon scrambled to decode it. The message was short, simple, but enough to stop his breath cold. Human outpost Theta 5. We saw the flare. We saw the mech. Is she really alive? He looked up at Leary. You were seen. Her brow furrowed. By who? Us, he said. Humans, he responded carefully. using basic code. Then a second message came, this time clearer. If she's truly the heir, tell her. The stars still remember. Leary sat down, stunned. That's the old code. The one we used to test loyalty. I thought it was lost. It's not lost, Yolan said. It's waiting. That night, Yolan worked in silence while Leary stood outside the chamber, staring at the twin moons. She didn't cry. She didn't smile. She just stood there, quiet, thoughtful. A little afraid, he walked over to her, placing a soft blanket over her shoulders. You know what this means, right? He said, you light that beacon again, others will come. People who still believe in your name, but so will the ones who want you dead. I know, she said. You're about to start a war. She turned to him, her face bathed in moonlight. No, she said. They started it. I'm just going to finish it. In that moment, he didn't see a lost girl. He didn't even see a princess. He saw a leader. She stepped forward and pressed. The disk into the old beacon tower rising from the cliff edge. Lights rippled across the sky, a message written in energy. Across the galaxy, old allies would see it. Old enemies would panic, and in the heart of the empire that betrayed her, alarms began to scream, the heir has declared war. Back in the lab, the mech's eyes lit up again, brighter than ever, and Yalan knew. They weren't just defending a mining moon anymore. They were preparing for a revolution. Asterisk. The signal Leary lit in the sky didn't just rise, echoed across. Cold asteroid fields, in broken colonies hiding under false names, and deep inside outlaw sectors where flags had long been burned. That pulse of energy, a royal flare spread like fire on dry wind. It wasn't just a call. It was a challenge. A statement. Heartbeat returned to life. Jal stood at the cliffside, watching the beacon glow above. The war mech behind him shimmered under moonlight, polished by hours of repairs. His body still ached from the last battle, but he didn't complain. He didn't need rest, because war was coming, and they weren't running this time. Leary stood. Beside him, dressed in her royal battle plate, a sleek armor of dark silver and pale blue light. Her eyes glowed steadily, no longer flickering like before. She didn't seem like a girl anymore. She carried the weight of a people, the fire of a fallen crown. What now? Yolan asked. She looked at him. Now, we see who still remembers me. 3 days passed, 3 long. Silent days, until the sky cracked. Not with enemy fire, but with arrival. From the dark came old, human warships, ships no one had seen in decades. Most were patched, scratched, and barely flying. Dozens. And behind them smaller alien craft, flying without flags. Scarred and rebuilt by survivors of the fallen royal empire. They didn't ask questions. They came for her. When they landed, the first to step out was an old woman with metal arms and a scar running down her face. She knelt before Leary. We thought you were dead. I was, Leary said softly. But I came back in him, the woman asked. Nodding toward Yolan, Leary looked at him with a small smile. Brought me back. The crowd of warriors and rebels turned toward Yolan. He raised a hand awkwardly. I just fixed things, mostly. But they knew. This man, this simple human salvager, had held off a fleet. Guarded the galaxy's most wanted girl, and stood when empires wanted him dead. That wasn't nothing. That was everything. Later that night, the war table was set. Plans. Laid out, the traitor fleets had pulled back, but they were preparing for a strike. One final blow to wipe out Leary's rebirth and crush any hope of rebellion. Leary knew what she had to do. I'll meet them, she said. At the old capital, at Vorin. The room went quiet. That's suicide, one rebel captain said. Their fleet still holds the planetary ring. She nodded. Good. Then they'll all be there. She turned to Yolan. Will you come with me? He didn't blink. You even need to ask? The final battle began, not with an explosion, but with a voice. But it's broadcast across the enemy channels, echoing in the dark void of space. You took my family. You burned my people. You chased me across stars. But you forgot one thing. I am not alone anymore. The fleet fell upon Vorin like a wave of memory and vengeance. Yalin piloted the war mech through the chaos, tearing through defense turrets and enemy fighters like a hammer from an older age. Lyri stood in the command center of her flagship, surrounded by the very people once scattered like dust. They fought beside her human alien, hybrid all bound by something stronger than blood. Hope. For hours the battle raged. Explosions lit the sky. Palace gates cracked under pressure, and finally, they breached the central throne room. Inside stood the traitor lord, once a councilman, now armored in stolen royal tech, holding the same sigil Lyri once wore as a child. "You should have stayed dead," he hissed. Lyri didn't answer. She walked forward, unarmed. He raised a blade, and in one flash of light, the disc in her hand ignited pure, blinding energy. The throne room vanished in white. When the smoke cleared, she stood alone, and the war was over. Weeks passed. The palace was rebuilt, slowly, carefully. Not in gold, but in stone and glass, strong and open. Lyri didn't call herself Empress. She called herself heir of the people. She built her council from all species. She turned the throne into a seat shared by many, and beside her stood Jalen, not in armor, not in command, but in peace. "Why do you stay?" she asked him once. He shrugged. "Salvagers fix broken things. I figured I'd stay till you're fixed." She laughed softly. "Then you'll be here a long time." He smiled. "I don't mind." That night, under a sky finally free of fire, she looked out across her new world. She had been lost, broken, alone. But one human had seen more in her than a title or a bloodline. He had seen a person worth saving, and in return, she had given him a place no galaxy could take away. Not a throne, not a command, just a home. Together, they had changed the stars, and the stars would never forget it.